He said the apartment above him was empty. His smart speaker log caught a toilet flush upstairs at 2:15 a.m., stamped with the same minute his own bathroom fan turned on. The next morning, he arrived with proof he'd already compiled. He slid a printed spreadsheet across the folding table in my office. The office was the back room of a defunct travel agency, with sun-faded posters of beaches that hadn't been updated in years. The printer paper still smelled warm. 30 days, he said. It's all there. It's not in my head. The log was exported from his smart home app. Rows of timestamps, audio triggers, and clipped waveforms. He'd highlighted a column he titled Upstairs Response. Each time he walked to his kitchen, his device logged footfalls. Seconds later, the upstairs unit logged creaks and a cabinet tap. He'd run his own numbers. 98% correlation, he claimed, and he'd circled the percentage in red ink hard enough to tear the paper. It echoes me, he said. I stand up, they stand up.
I open a drawer, they open a drawer. He had a lease renewal in 48 hours. He wanted me to tell him whether he was safe before he signed. I listened to 3 audio clips from his phone. In one, his microwave beeped. Above it, after a pause, came the softer beep of a different microwave. In another, his shower started, and a minute later there was the sound of water moving through pipes overhead, then a step, then a cough. None of it proved intent. It proved somebody was there. I talked to the property manager, he said. They said the unit is deadbolted. They said nobody's been in there for months. He set his keys down on my table while he talked. 2 keys, 1 fob, and a small brass tag stamped with an apartment number that didn't match his. I didn't touch it. I just noted it. I should have started with building acoustics and shared ductwork. Instead, I went where I tend to go first. Someone's using the space, I said. Could be a squatter.
Could be someone with access. He nodded too fast, as if he'd been waiting for permission to be afraid. I wrote my intake notes on a yellow pad. 30-day log, 2:15 a.m. flush, correlation claim, lease deadline. And then I wrote down the brass tag and drew a box around it. When I asked about it, he flushed and pocketed it. That's old, he said, from before. He didn't explain, and I let it sit. I took the retainer and asked for the property manager's contact and any building emails about repairs. Before he left, he hovered at the doorway for a second too long, hand on the knob, breath shallow. Please, he said, I just need to know. After he went out through the travel agency's silent front room, I sat with the spreadsheet without touching it. I didn't open any new tabs. I stared at the circled 98% until the number stopped meaning anything. Then I flipped the top page over and saw what he'd used as backing.
A tenant ledger printout with a line item highlighted in pale marker. Lock change fee, $500. No date I could trust, no vendor name, just a charge. I set the ledger aside and drank coffee that had been on the warmer too long. I didn't feel smarter after it. The management portal didn't want me in. 2-factor codes, limited roles, vendor access logs tucked behind menus meant for staff. I tried the link the client forwarded, hit a login wall, and called the property manager. They picked up on the 3rd ring, out of breath, as if I'd caught them moving. This is a private investigator. I'm working for a tenant. I need entry records for the vacant unit above him. Short silence, then a laugh that didn't invite anything. The manager said, We don't release that. And the unit is vacant, deadbolted, end of story. It's not vacant, I said. There are audio logs. I don't care about his gadgets, they said. He can call maintenance. I'm asking about access. Vendor pins, temporary codes. Their tone shifted from annoyed to careful.
"We don't use codes for apartments," they said. "We have keys. Anything else is not our system." They rushed the last phrase. Not our system meant there was another system, even if they didn't want to name it. I didn't tell them about the tenant ledger printout. I asked when the upstairs unit was last repaired. "Plumbing," they said. 3 months back. Fixed. Closed." They said closed too quickly, then tried to end the call. After I hung up, I tried the password reset flow on the portal. It required an email I didn't have. I tried the client's email. Nothing. I tried the building's generic contact. Nothing. I sat back and did nothing for a full minute. My first read was that the property manager was complicit. I could feel the assumption hardening, and I didn't like that it felt easy. I went to the building. It was an ordinary apartment building with ordinary problems: scuffed entryway paint, a package shelf with misdelivered boxes, and a keypad on the front door that residents treated as a suggestion. The client buzzed me in. He looked worse than he had in my office, not from injury, from sleep. He talked in a low voice even though we were in his own unit. He showed me a setup: one smart speaker in the kitchen, a hub by the router, a contact sensor on his front door. The export on his screen matched the printed log. I had him play the 2:15 a.m. clip again. The flush was faint, but it was there. After it, a soft thud, then a scrape across something hard. "Deadbolted," he said, almost whispering the word. I walked the ceiling line where the upstairs bathroom would be and found the vent. Cheap grill, ductwork that rattled when I tapped it. I pressed my phone recorder near it and asked him to run his faucet. The vent carried the sound cleanly. That didn't explain the matching routines. It explained why his speaker heard more than it should. The client wanted me to go upstairs right then. I didn't. Not yet. I told him to keep logging and not to confront anyone. "I hear them when I brush my teeth," he said. "It's the same pace. I'm going to check access," I said. "If someone's in there, they're getting in somehow." He walked me to his door. His hand hovered over the deadbolt and then stopped. He didn't unlock it. He didn't lock it. He just stood there. I went up to the second-floor landing and stood in front of the vacant unit. The door looked normal. No tape, no notices, no eviction posting. The deadbolt plate had shallow scratches consistent with a key that didn't seat right. I didn't force anything. I took photos of the lock hardware and the frame and left it alone. Out back, I found the service door. Metal. Keypad. A black reader. Above it, a faded sticker that said, "Vendors use PIN." No camera in sight. That didn't mean there wasn't one. It meant I didn't have proof either way. The next morning, I asked the client for building-wide notices. He searched his inbox while I sat at his kitchen table. He found one. "Vendors on-site Tuesday. Temporary PIN active for service door 9 a.m. to p.m. It included the last 4 digits of a work order." I called the vendor listed on the notice. A dispatcher answered. I gave the last 4 digits and said I needed confirmation of completion on the deactivation date for billing reconciliation. They put me on hold. I reread the client's log without finding anything new. The 98% correlation didn't improve with repetition. It just irritated me. The dispatcher came back. "Job closed," they said, 3 months ago. Vendor PIN handled by property management. Do you still have the PIN?" I asked. "We don't keep them," they said. "Issued to the tech. Expires when management disables it." "Who was the tech?" I asked. "I can't give names," they said, and the line got stiff. I pushed once more. They gave me a first name only, then corrected themselves and stopped talking. It was enough to tell me the job wasn't fictional.
I called the property manager again and told them I had reason to believe a vendor pin was still active. "We monitor those," they said. "Nobody is getting in. Your guy is paranoid." I said, "Send me the log."
If it's dead, it's a short email. "Put it in writing," they said, and hung up. I stayed in my car for a few minutes with my phone in my lap. No calls, no new messages, just the hum of traffic outside the lot and a building that kept its secrets. I went around them. Most access control systems have a local panel, usually in a locked closet near the service entrance. The building had a utility closet near the back, padlocked with a rusted shackle. I stood there longer than I needed to. Bolt cutters in my bag, a bad idea that would still work. I didn't move for a full count of 10, and I didn't get any braver during it. Then I cut the lock. The shackle fought. The cut wasn't clean. My hand shook with the effort, and I hated that part because it made me careless. The door swung open. Inside were meters and a gray control box with a brand label. I photographed everything.
The box had a service sticker with a phone number, an install date, and a panel ID taped to the inside of the door. I called the number and gave the panel ID. I said I was doing an audit. They asked for authorization. I used the property manager's name. The tech hesitated and said they could at least confirm whether a vendor pin was active. "Vendor pin is active," he said, "and it's been used." "How many times?" I asked. A pause, then typing. 14 entries, he said, last 90 days, mostly early morning, one at 2:12 a.m. That number landed hard because I'd thrown it at the property manager as a bluff. I wrote it down twice so I wouldn't pretend later it was a memory. "Tagged to what?" I asked. "A plumbing work order. That's all I can see." I thanked him and ended the call. I put the bolt cutters back in my bag and shut the utility closet door. The broken padlock stayed on the ground, and I didn't have a clean way to feel about it. When I called the property manager back and told them what I'd confirmed, they went straight to offense. "You broke into our utility room," they said. "I cut a padlock," I said. "I have photos of an active vendor pin and a tenant with logs." They didn't deny the pin. They said they'd handle it internally. "Send me proof the upstairs lock was changed, a locksmith receipt, hardware serial, something." "There's a lock change fee," they said, "standard." "That's not proof," I said. They emailed me a PDF invoice. It was from their own office, not a locksmith. "Lock change fee, $500. No labor line, no hardware detail, no signature." I decided the property manager was skimming money and letting someone use the unit as a side deal. It fit too well, and I took it anyway. I didn't stop myself. That night I did a stakeout from the back lot where I could see the upstairs windows. The vacant unit's blinds were down, blacked out with something behind them. At 2:15 a.m., a thin light leak appeared at the edge of the bathroom window. Brief, controlled. At 2:15 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from the client. Heard it again. Flush and step. I wrote it down. 2 separate sources, same minute. I stayed another hour. No one came out. No doors opened. The service door didn't move. Sitting in my car after, I didn't turn the key. I watched the windows and ran escape routes in my head. Back door with vendor pin, stairwell, roof access. None of it gave me a person, just paths. The next morning, I went back to the utility closet and looked at the meters. The water meter for the upstairs unit was separate and labeled, old dial, readable. I took a photo at 5:55 a.m. Then I waited near the hall and took another at 6:05. The dial had moved. I did the math off the face.
About 40 gallons in 10 minutes. Not a drip, not a leak. A shower and a toilet. I knocked on the upstairs door at noon. No answer. I knocked again. Still nothing. The knob didn't turn, deadbolt engaged.
I called the property manager and asked for immediate entry for a welfare and safety check. They refused. Then they offered maintenance in 2 to 3 days. The client's lease deadline was under 24 hours. I asked the client a question I should have asked earlier. Had he ever had access to the upstairs unit for any reason? He hesitated and admitted he used to take packages up there for the previous tenant. He'd been given a temporary key. He opened a kitchen drawer and pulled out the brass-tagged keyring I'd seen in my office. The tag matched the upstairs unit. I wrote, "Client withheld key," in my notes. I didn't say anything comforting. I didn't say anything sharp. I just sat with the fact that I'd read him as purely frightened, and I'd missed the embarrassment that made him lie. We went upstairs at 1:10 p.m. I told him to stay behind me and keep his phone recording audio, not for drama, for documentation. The key worked. The deadbolt turned. Inside, the air was stale with hot plate heat and damp fabric.
The unit was mostly empty, but not vacant. An air mattress lay on the living room floor, half deflated, with a folded blanket at one edge. A hot plate sat on the counter next to instant coffee. In the bathroom, a towel hung over the shower rod, still wet. The client made a sound that wasn't a word. He didn't step farther in. I checked the bedroom closet. A canvas rucksack was shoved behind flattened moving boxes, work clothes, a spare phone charger, a small set of tools. Nothing with a name at first glance. Then I found a municipal library card tucked into the rucksack's front pocket. Barcode. Patron number. No photo. The client reached for it and I stopped him. "Don't," I said. "I'm taking it as found." We photographed what we could and left. We locked the unit exactly as we'd found it. Back downstairs, the client asked if he should call the police. "Not yet," I said. "Not unless we have to." He didn't like the answer, and I didn't like giving it.
I wanted control of the outcome before the lease clock forced him into panic decisions. I went to the municipal library with the card number in my notebook. I didn't expect patron info. I expected no. At the desk, I kept it simple. I found a library card in a vacant apartment, I said. I'm trying to contact the card holder. The clerk went guarded. We can't give patron information, they said. I'm not asking for it, I said. Can you confirm if it's active? A pause, then typing. It's active, they said. Can you tell me if it was used recently? I asked. They started to refuse, then stopped themselves. I can't give details, they said. It was used yesterday. That gave me a routine. Daytime, outside. Nighttime, inside. I asked for a message relay. They refused. I asked for anything official. They refused again. I stepped away to a bulletin board and opened my notes. I didn't scroll. I didn't have anything else to do with the information. A card number and a living person I couldn't name.
Near the public computers, a sign read, "Scan card to log on." The screen flashed a greeting when someone scanned. I waited near the terminals longer than I should have. I watched greetings appear and vanish. Most were too fast to read. One screen lagged and held the greeting for a beat. Welcome, first name. Not a full identity. Not enough for a report. Enough to ask around without sounding blind. A man in work boots came in later, used a terminal for 10 minutes, then printed a single page.
He carried a battered lunch cooler with a school mascot sticker half peeled. That sticker bothered me. It didn't fit the story I'd built about a manager running a scheme. It fit a life that kept getting moved. He dropped a receipt in the trash near the printer station. I waited until he walked off, then pulled it out. The receipt had a timestamp, a partially masked email, and a job site address for day labor check-in. I copied it into my notebook and left. The next morning, I went to the day labor site listed on the receipt.
Men lined up early. Names got called. Nobody asked questions that didn't involve pay. I asked the site coordinator if they had a contractor who'd worked a plumbing repair at my client's building 3 months ago. "We don't track that," they said. I showed the receipt timestamp and said I was trying to return a bag left behind. I didn't show the address yet. They shrugged and pointed toward a cluster near a fence. "Talk to them," they said. "Don't bring me into it." I asked for the first name I'd seen at the terminal greeting. I kept my voice low. One man nodded toward someone stepping away. I called out the first name. He flinched and changed pace. I followed at a walk. He cut toward a crowded transit station entrance. I should have let him go and followed later. Instead, I raised my voice and pushed. That was on me. "Library card," I said, "from the upstairs unit." He shoved through a line. In the scramble, he dropped a clipboard. It clattered and papers slid out. I grabbed the clipboard and stopped. If I kept chasing, I'd lose both him and the paper. On the back of the clipboard, in thick pencil, was my client's building address and the upstairs unit number. Above it, a full first and last name. Under it, a phone number. I stepped aside and called the number. It went to voicemail. An automated greeting ended, then a man's voice came on, low and rushed. "This is first name," it said. "Leave it." I didn't leave a message. I put the phone away and stood there with the clipboard in my hands, feeling the sting of having forced a scene in public for no reason that helped me. At 11:30 a.m., the client texted, "Property manager emailed lease. Need answer by noon tomorrow." At the same time, I got an email notification from the property manager with the subject line, "Lock change fee, owner ledger attached." They had attached the same $500 invoice again, as if repetition made it real. By that afternoon, I went back to the building with printed photos and my notes. I didn't tell the property manager. I didn't bring the client.
I also changed my approach after the transit station mess. I uploaded every photo to a secure folder and emailed copies to myself and the client. If my phone vanished, the evidence wouldn't. I let myself into the upstairs unit again and stood in the living room without moving. The air mattress was still there. The place was empty in daylight. I listened. Then I checked the bedroom closet again and found a loose floor register plate. Under it was an open ventilation shaft between floors, bare metal and open air. You could hear the downstairs unit through it. Not clearly, but enough to time routines. Faucet, drawer, microwave, footsteps. That was the echo. Not someone copying him for fun. Someone hearing him because the building was built cheap and then moving when the building let them. The reversal hit me slow. I'd built a story about a manager running a side deal. The evidence kept pointing to something smaller and uglier. A pin left active, a lock maybe never changed, and a person using the gap.
At 5:20 p.m., I went to the transit station where I'd seen the man run. I waited near the same entrance. I didn't know he'd come back. I only knew people repeat routes when they're trying to hold on to work. At 5:47 p.m., he showed up.
Work boots, lunch cooler with the school sticker, head down. I stepped into his path enough that he had to stop or collide. He stopped. "Don't call cops," he said immediately. "I'll go." "I haven't called," I said. "I'm private. I'm not here to arrest you." He shifted his weight, ready to bolt again. "You were in that building 3 months ago. Plumbing job. You got a vendor pin. It stayed active. 14 entries." His mouth tightened at 14. Numbers hit him harder than blame. "I didn't steal," he said. "That place was empty." "I deadbolted it," I said. He started to deny, then stopped. He pulled his phone out, not to show me anything, just to grip it. "I work," he said. "I don't hurt nobody." "Downstairs tenant thinks he's being stalked," I said. "He has 30 days of logs." That changed him. Defensive shifted to confused. "I didn't stalk," he said. "I don't even know him." I kept it flat. "You've got alarms set for the quiet hours." He froze. Then his phone lit as his hand moved. The screen showed the alarm list. 5:45 a.m., active. Another at 2:10 a.m., labeled bathroom. He didn't cover the screen fast enough. "I hear him," he said, "through the vent. I try to move quiet." I let a second of dead air sit. He looked tired more than dangerous. "I can make this a police thing, or I can make it a packing thing, tonight." He nodded too fast. "Tonight," he said. "No cops." At 6:12 p.m., the client texted me a screenshot from his smart home app. Upstairs motion detected. He'd been at work. The unit above him was not empty, even with me standing in a transit station. That was the midpoint threat I hadn't planned for. If the man decided to clean out in a hurry, evidence would disappear.
If he decided to panic, the client would be the one living under it. We met at the building at 8:30 p.m. I brought the property manager into it only at the last minute, by email, with attachments: the access control text confirmation of 14 PIN entries, the water meter photos, and their own $500 invoice. I told them I was supervising a voluntary vacate. I told them they would be present to deactivate the code and document the unit. They replied in 5 minutes. Suddenly, they had availability. The contractor entered through the service door using the vendor pin. I stood beside him and watched him punch it. I wrote the time from my phone, 8:37 p.m. The property manager arrived at 8:50 p.m. with a tight face. They didn't greet me, they didn't greet the contractor. They greeted the situation. We went upstairs. The client stayed in his unit downstairs at my request. He didn't want to be there, and he didn't want to hear footsteps overhead while the man packed. The contractor moved fast. Blanket, hot plate, tools, rucksack.
2 trips, and the room started looking vacant again. In the bedroom closet, he lifted the register plate and pointed down at the shaft. "That's it," he said. "That's where I hear him." The shaft was bare metal and open air, straight line between floors. "You learned his routine," I said. He shook his head. "I learned when he sleeps so I can shower." Downstairs, a floorboard creaked. The client shifting in his living room. The sound carried up through the same shaft, clear enough to time. The contractor paused, listening, then folded his blanket tighter. He didn't look proud. He looked cornered by the fact that he'd never been invisible. The property manager stood in the doorway with their tablet open to the vendor pin page. They typed, then hesitated, then looked at me. "If we deactivate, vendors can't get in," they said. "You can issue new codes per job," I said. "That's the point." They clicked through. The tablet displayed a confirmation. Vendor pin deactivated, with a timestamp. He'd signed my retainer at 9:03 p.m.
The deactivation receipt later printed as 9:16 p.m.
The gap was 13 minutes, and the only thing that happened in between was the property manager deciding the moment they couldn't deny. At 9:03 p.m., the contractor carried his rucksack out. The lunch cooler came last. The school sticker caught the door frame and he smoothed it down before he left. Outside, he stood by the curb with his things and didn't move. No ride, no plan I could see. He kept his voice low. "Tell him I wasn't copying him." "I'll tell him what I can prove," I said. The property manager locked the unit and tried to usher everyone away. I didn't let them leave without one more point on the record. "The $500 lock change," I said. "You billed it. You didn't do it." They started to deny, then stopped mid-sentence and pivoted to a different lie. "It was administrative," they said. "We do paperwork." "It wasn't performed," I said. "I'm putting that in the report." They didn't argue after that. They stared at their tablet and then at the hallway floor. The next morning, I met the client back in my office.
He looked like he'd slept, not fully, but enough to stop shaking. He held his lease renewal packet, unopened. Then I stapled the vendor pin deactivation receipt to the front of my file, the one that read 9:16 p.m. in bold at the top, and I couldn't shake the thought that the property manager had waited until I was physically in the building to click deactivate.